we were doing the recapitulation from hunting gathering to growing food. So now this is the video 2 for today. So in revision we have missed this rock painting, so because that one video I had that much of time. So now in the second video I would like to explain you what are the rock paintings. If we talk about the rock paintings, many of the caves in which these earlier people used to live had beautiful paintings of different animals which were found at that time. They are found, these kinds of rock paintings are found in Madhya Pradesh, they are found in southern Uttar Pradesh. These paintings show wild animals and they were drawn with great accuracy and skill. The dominant color used in these rock paintings were yellow and red. Generally the people used the minerals or the things which were naturally present around them. Then came the sites in a revision only. So if we talk about the sites are the places where the remains of the things, are found. It can be tools, it can be pots, it can be buildings, but of course in the Paleolithic period buildings were not there. They may be found on the surface of the earth or they can be buried under the earth. Both cases. It can be on the earth, it can be inside the earth. And then we talked about two kinds of sites. One were habitation site where people used to live, and then we studied about the factory sites where people used to make the tools, right? And if the people are living at the same place and making tools at the same place, then it is known as habitation cum factory sites. I gave you the very good example of this also, that your refinery factory is away from your residence, so that is your father's factory site, and the refinery township is your habitation site. But in many, like in Model Town or in Sector 29, they have the factory in the ground floor and they are staying on the first floor. So that is habitation cum factory site. So I hope this is clear to everyone. So let's come back to these periods. So we discussed about the Paleolithic period, and then children, the second period was Mesolithic period. To understand the Mesolithic period, we have to understand the changes in the environment. Earlier, the environment was very cold. Sometimes it is also known as the Ice Age. But slowly and slowly, the environment started changing when? Around 12,000 years ago. That is the Mesolithic age. How it changed? The temperature increased and the area became more warmer. When the little warmth was there in the environment, grasses started growing, and when the grasslands increased, the animals which dependent upon these grasses for the food, that also increased. Which were these animals? It could be deer, antelope, then goat, sheep, cattle, animals that survived on grass basically. Now people who hunted these animals, they now followed them because the number increased. So they followed them and they learnt about their food habits. They saw that what kind of food these animals were eating. And even they learned, they had a knowledge of their breeding seasons, that when their number can be, how and when can the number be increased. When they saw all these scenario, they thought of herding and rearing these animals. And this is the Mesolithic period, that when all these people from hunting to gathering started learning herding and rearing. So they were hunters and gatherers also in Mesolithic period, as well as they become herders and started rearing the animals. A big change, right? And children, one more thing happened in the Mesolithic period. The tools which were made at that time, they are known as microliths. What are they known as? Microliths, because these tools were more pointed and they were more of a new style. They even had a handles of bones or wood. Even saws were made, sickles were made. Old variety of tools were of course available, but this new variety also came into the picture. And children, the last thing which we studied in the last 3 classes was the difference between the Paleolithic period and Mesolithic period. The first difference is about the time period. It extends from 2 million years to 12,000 years ago, and this Mesolithic period is from 12,000 years ago to 10,000 years ago. Fire was discovered. Discovery of fire already existed. People were hunters and gatherers. People were hunters and gatherers, as well as they started herding and rearing animal, which was not happening in the Paleolithic period. Climate was not warm. The climate changed and became warm. Grasslands increased. No grasslands. Right, so these are the some differences which we talked about in our previous classes. So now the first part of the chapter, as I told you that this chapter is a combination of 2 chapters on the trail of the earliest people and from hunting to gathering food. So we have covered the first part of the chapter, and now today we are going to start with the second part of the chapter, which is actually Neolithic period or Neolithic age. If we talk about the neo means new, lithic means stone. So new stone age, this period is also known as new stone age. As children, I told you earlier also, Paleolithic period covers the maximum time period, that is 99% of the human history. That is why Paleolithic period was divided into upper, middle and lower Paleolithic, but no such division was done to Neolithic period. Neolithic period is also known as New Stone Age. Am I clear? As I told you that in Mesolithic period, what was happening? Climate was changing. It was becoming more warmer. Now the climate was changing, so people were changing. When people were changing, at the same time, plants and animals were also changing. The changes were happening. Men and women and children probably observed several things. Number 1, they observed the places where they could get the edible plants, and how the plants broke off stalks, fell in the grounds, how the new plants grew. They started learning it, and then they began to look out the means how to protect these plants from the birds, from the animal, so that they could grow, they could ripen, and they could have them as a food. When they started doing this, they slowly and slowly were turning into farmers. Women, men and children. Now they could also attract and then tame animals. How? By leaving food for them. They used to leave the food for them. Like dog, wild ancestor of dog at that time, they started taming it. Little people encouraged animals that were relatively gentle to come near the camps where they used to live. These animals were, it could be sheep, it could be goat, it could be cattle. So more mild animals, they started attracting them. Even the pigs, they started keeping these animals near their area. Often people protected these animals from attacks by other wild animals, and that is why how they became herders, and then slowly and slowly they became farmer. So this is one topic which we have covered today, and the what can we call this topic? We can say this is how the period begins of farming and herding. So now children, for this video, this much. Now we will talk about the domestication in our next video, that is video number 3.